All right, so you've got everything hooked up and now you're ready to record. So the first really important thing we need to cover is gain staging, right? There's a lot of different points of gain that come into the process here. So you gotta make sure you're 100% good to go so that you don't record your set all distorted and then there's not much you can do after that. And you really don't wanna be in that position because it'll just waste your time and you'll have to record it again. So it's better to just set it up and get it right from the start. So starting from the very top, let's talk about the CDJs. The CDJs play the audio at their truest volume, pretty much at full volume, right? So you can't control the level of the audio at all on the CDJs. These send to output that go into our DJ mixer. The DJ mixer has a few different points of gain that you really need to pay attention to. The first point of audio enters in at the trim knob, which is a little gray gain knob at the top of each channel. So this CDJ is plugged into channel 3, so this trim knob would control that. Now this is where basically you set the volume for each song to line them up and make them match, because different recordings, especially different recordings from different eras and different times, are different volumes. Newer stuff is way louder than music from the 1980s or the 90s even. So if you're mixing sounds like that, you're gonna need to turn some of them up with the gain a little bit more and try to boost it to match a little bit more, or turn the other one down. So it's really important to control that trim knob as you're recording also, so that one song isn't quieter than another in your DJ mix. You want everything to be pretty much level as you're recording, so you gotta really pay attention to that. After that point, you come down to the channel fader. This is what most DJs use to mix in their audio, or to basically, you have the slider, the crossfader, then you have the main fader, the channel fader, that brings up the volume. So the trim stays usually where you set it to, and then you can slowly ramp it up with these faders down here. This doesn't really go beyond 10, where the trim knob can take you into like plus volume. So the gain knob can add a lot of volume to it, where the fader will pretty much max out at the highest point of the trim knob. So you gotta use them together that way. After that, you have the master output on the mixer. This is basically gonna send all of the volume of both CDJs and the effects coming out into your interface. So you gotta make sure that this is at a nice volume that's not too high, because if this starts distorting, then you're stuck with that. And it's an awful sound, makes everything sound really digitally distorted, and it just can sound really smooth. And even if you capture your mix too quiet, you can always make it louder later in Logic, which I'm gonna show you in the next lesson. So you wanna make sure that your trim is at a good point and not clipping in the red. You can use your faders however you want. As long as you're not clipping in the trim in the red, this fader can go up all the way and you're good. And that's basically where it's gonna land after you mix in your song every time anyway. Then you're using your effects, you're using both CDJs, you're sending both songs sometimes in the mix and the crossover mix. The main output is gonna be your master volume that goes out into your interface. So that covers all the DJ gear. Going into the interface, we have 2 gain knobs that basically tell you how much volume they're receiving and how much they're gonna send into the computer, and you control the levels with that again. So you wanna make sure you're not too loud, so you wanna make sure that these are receiving a nice volume from here, and then you're sending these at a nice, I'll call it color on the meter into Logic, and then you're good to go. So let's do a little test and see what we got. So if I play this song here on channel 3, I see on the trim knob, it's not in the red. If I turn it up to about 7, it goes into the red. So I would pull it back and probably leave it at noon. And noon on the trim knob is pretty much 0, okay? So if I go up to 6, 7, 8, or I guess it'd be this way for you, it would get louder and louder and eventually starts to clip because I'm driving it, the volume. So let's leave it at a nice point here. If I turn it up, it's going into the master at a nice volume. That's what I see here. And it's pretty low, but I'm not too worried about it. It's getting a nice signal. And when I look on my interface, I'm getting really nice levels here, not quite in the yellow. And if I look in Logic and compare it to that, I just have one stereo track open that I'm receiving here. And I'm not mad at that. Volume's at about 3/4. I could turn this up a little bit. If I want to get more, I start to go into the yellow on my interface. We don't want that. I'm going to pull it back and keep it safe where it was. So I know that my levels are all good there. So we're pretty much ready to record. So let's say I'm going to start off my mix. Again, I have just one basic stereo audio track with no effects on it. I have no effects on in my master output, and we're just gonna record an hour-long set into here as you would. I would hit the record button, make sure the click is off, and it does not matter what BPM your session is at because you're probably gonna play several different BPMs during your set, and you don't have to worry about gridlocking it because you're recording a really raw DJ set. So we're recording already. I would start off my mix with this song. Let me set it from the top here. Maybe filter in a little bit. Bring it in slowly. Kick off my mix. All right, so I'm cruising there. The levels are all looking good, just like how I had everything. Let's say I want to get another mix in because you would basically go into an hour of DJing. I would cue my next song. Maybe, let's check it out here. All right, for the sake of time, I'm just gonna mix in early after this little build up here. Set some effects up. Gonna use the spiral effect. I'm gonna turn the low frequency button off on this mixer. I'm gonna set it to halftime. And here we go, the song's about to drop in. All right. So I have the trim knob set on this other CDJ that I'm about to mix into. It looks pretty good, but I'm actually going to turn it to about a quarter of the way because I hear it's lined up. I'm actually gonna bring this fader up to add some percussion. So this is all the way up, and because my trim is like at 1/4 of the way, it's not gonna be that loud, so I can bring it up here. I'm gonna filter this one out and mix them over. Swap out the lows. Bring up that trim, bring this one down. And that's it. So this one's filtered out now. I turned the trim down a little bit on it, and this is really important because now this is gonna come in at the same volume that this one was at, and this one's kind of on the way out already, so it's okay to bring that one down. Like I was saying, really important to make sure that you're recording your songs at really good levels and that they don't dip around too much. So that's pretty much that in a nutshell. From here on, you would go on to mix your whole hour-long set. In the next lesson, which is our final lesson, I'm gonna show you guys how to punch in if you mess up and you wanna correct something. And then I'm gonna show you how to do some basic mastering techniques. See you in a minute.